Hey, how's everybody doing? I've been having a fantastic day. It is Wednesday, October 8th, and I am here with Pinesap. And this is a very highly requested stream. Everybody has been asking about it. Everybody wants me to treat this question because it is a very contentious issue. And last week, if you guys didn't notice, this is meant to connect with my stream from last week. Last week, I interviewed Christopher Hale. We talked about a sort of moderate Democrat, pro-life Democrat option that he kind of pushes for the future of political life in America. And I just wanted to have a chat with somebody on the left wing. I'm not left wing at all, but I wanted to just chat with him, have a conversation that I thought would be very helpful. And a lot of people, they found it to be a very helpful conversation. But this week, I wanted to talk about something even more contentious. I wanted to have a chat with one of the Groyper generals, whatever the heck a Groyper general is. But Pinesap, I wanted to talk with him. I wanted to ask him about the relationship between being a Groyper and being a Catholic, whether Groyperism is an essentially Catholic movement, whether it's in line with Catholic teaching. Bring forward all of those objections that a lot of non-Groypers think about, and just hear them out. Because even if you're not a Groyper, I wouldn't consider myself a Groyper, and we can talk. Pinesap and I can talk about that a little bit later. I've talked about it on stream before. I don't consider myself a Groyper. I have a lot of Groyper friends, and I agree with Groypers on a lot of things. But I just wanted to talk, have a conversation with Pinesap, bring it forward, bring it out into the light, because a lot of people speculate. A lot of people think that I'm a closet Groyper, or, maybe I am just in agreement on everything or in disagreement on a lot, and I just kind of don't want to say it because I'm scared. I've had people do everything, Pinesap. It's crazy. I've had people do everything from accuse me of being like a closet Groyper to accuse me of being a coward, and therefore I never speak on Groyperism because I disagree with them on a lot of things. It's everything. But I just wanted to talk with Pinesap about it and kind of go through everything. So how you doing, Pinesap?
I'm doing really good, buddy. Thanks for having me on. And I just wanted to clarify, I'm not a Groyper general. I'm just a Catholic who is a Groyper. So just to get that out of the way, I don't want to claim to, represent the movement in any official capacity, but I do love to defend it and stuff like that because it's very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, awesome. Before we get into the questions, particularly that I wanted to ask him, I just wanted to let you guys know about the format. So we're going to be chatting for about 45, 50 minutes on the issues related to what I said. We're going to answer some super chats near the end, and then we're going to go to the after show. And the after show, that's where, we let our hair down, and that's where we say all the controversial stuff. So I'm going to, do a little bit I can't say it because it's the Groyperism stream, but you guys know exactly what I mean. I'm going to do a little bit of that and put the second half of the conversation where we get all controversial behind a paywall. So if you want to become a member or become a patron, you can have access to that, patreon.com/militant or just click the join button below. But the first question that I wanted to ask you, Pinesap, and I think this is a question that a lot of people, especially, once you get past the age of like 28, 29, 30, is what is a Groyper? Like, what is a Groyper? What does it mean? Like, what qualifies as a Groyper? Like, if I wanted to be a Groyper tomorrow, do I sign up, in the online Groyper form on like nickfuentes.com? Do I join the Rumble channel? Like, what constitutes a Groyper?
So what constitutes a Groyper is the term's etymology comes from a variant of Pepe that I think dropped in like 2017. And you can look it up on Know Your Meme, but the Anon who is writing about the character said, this guy's name is Groyper and he's like a chill friend and what have you. And early on, the Groyper PFP, the Groyper profile picture, was synonymous with being just a part of the far right. But it was understood that Nick's fans, Nick Fuentes fans, use the PFP almost exclusively, so it became synonymous with being a supporter of America First, which is the movement that Nick heads up. And what makes our movement different is it is completely grassroots, it's organic, and it's decentralized. It's not a membership org. You don't sign your name to anything. It's just you vocalize support. And there's a reason for that, because membership orgs really, when we get on the dissident right, tend to be kind of precarious. And sometimes you get people involved who are feds, who are ill-intentioned, or who might misrepresent that movement or misrepresent that movement's values or missions. And so the decentralization of America First is actually a tactical advantage to not getting associated with anyone we don't want to be associated with, and not having any potential for like Fed infiltration or what have you.
So so when it comes to like the specific like ideological, I guess might be the best word, the specific ideological constituency of, to put it like complexly, of Groyperism, is it more so like you hold to a degree of like postulates, like I believe X, Y, and Z, and therefore I'm a Groyper? Or is it more of a personal allegiance, like I hold to what Nick Fuentes holds to, and therefore I'm a Groyper?
So it's kind of a little bit of both. We who are in AF feel that Nick is the best political commentator around right now, of all time, really. And so we do tend to follow his positions that he has, because he does a lot of study on foreign policy, domestic policy, all these different issues currently affecting our country, and puts it through a faithful Catholic lens. And so that lends a lot of credibility and trust to us wanting to throw our weight behind him. But at the same time, if you wanted to paint sort of an ideological brush broadly, I would say the closest political position is the paleocon position that Pat Buchanan, Samuel T. Francis, and Joseph Sobran mapped out, which was a more confessional Catholic conservative approach to politics. One that the sort of normie right, or the normal right wing, the normal Republican Party, tried to kind of excise out of the Republican Party around the 1980s through men like William F. Buckley and National Review.
Yeah, so when it comes to the degree in which one agrees to Nick or disagrees with Nick, like as a sort of like personal authority, like is there room for allowable differences in opinion? And this might bring in kind of at least my the objection that I hear from a lot of people. I was talking actually with a classic anti-Groyper A-logger last night, and I was just like, hey man, give me all your best objections, I'll throw them up the Sappy, and we'll talk about them. But the first thing is that it seems like when it comes to the movement itself, there's not really much room for disagreement on like secondary or tertiary issues, and I don't think this is something that Nick himself has. Actually, my first interaction with Nick was I had disagreed. I kind of wrote out a lot of what I thought about Nick on a long Twitter post, and Nick actually screenshotted it, put it on his, shared it on his Telegram, and he said this was a fair critique, like some of the critiques that I had and some of the differences of opinion. He said he thought it was fair and balanced. So it seems like Nick himself is actually very open to hearing out what other people think, and I think that's very admirable. But maybe this is like a Groyper thing. Is that like a fair way of putting it, that Nick is more open to it if they're fair and they're honest, they're in good faith, whereas Groypers oftentimes they have a difficulty with discerning good from bad faith criticism?
So I think the main thing that we take issue with broadly is the finger wagging and lecturing. Finger wagging and lecturing is not something that we're really interested in, and that's generally a bad faith approach. But fair criticisms or fair approaches, I would definitely say Nick is open to. And if it is presented in such a way that comes from a constructive basis and not wanting to tear us down and not wanting to disrupt what we're trying to do, then I would say definitely Nick is open to that kind of criticism. And there's other tertiary issues where we might not exactly agree on literally every single thing ever, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because I'll give a good example. Nick doesn't really like Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, right? And he's more of a Game of Thrones guy. That's totally fine. I can disagree with him on that, and it doesn't make me disloyal. It doesn't make me someone who's outside the pale of AF or anything like that. The problem is a lot of the A-logs are nasty. They're not nice people. They're very rude. They're very boisterous, and they put themselves in this position of authority that they don't otherwise have. I've said this before, I think even on your stream, but if you're some kid living in a college dorm and you're looking at Nick, who ends up on Times Square and on Mother Jones and the Washington Post and all these magazines, and you're saying, oh, from my college dorm on my YouTube channel or on my Twitter account that has 100 followers, I'm going to make criticisms of the movement, it comes off as being very self-indulgent and I think not really based in reality. Whereas people who come along and want to build up this movement and make it better, I think there is definitely a room for those people to offer their insight and their constructive criticism. But A-logs don't do that. They're just seeking to tear down. They're seeking to slander all of us and say nasty things. And then when they get called out for it, they run this sort of defense or this boy who cried wolf where they're like, oh, I'm just asking questions. I'm just being, offering constructive criticism. It's like, what's constructive about you insulting us or insinuating nasty things about us? Nothing. And, for people who are not Catholic, I don't excuse it, but it's kind of like, I expect it. You know what I mean? Like, when you hear like, this sounds awful, but like when you hear of a new war starting in the Middle East, it's like, it's bad, but you're like, it's just another Tuesday. You know what I mean? But when I see Catholics engaging in this kind of behavior, I think it's incredibly uncharitable. And I think it's incredibly bad faith. And I would even sometimes argue sinful. And they defend it with this sort of beating their chest like the Pharisee, this sort of holier than thou piety. But that's not going to take any of us away from God's divine judgment of misjudging our brother or mischaracterizing our brother.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say, and I think this is most of the time I think this is stated in a way that's unfair, but a lot of people will bring up instances of possible scandal because I understand this. I am cognizant of the fact that there are people out there who look up to me and in ways imitate me. There's same with you, Pinesap, and obviously with Nick on a much, much larger scale. And they would say that when it comes to public acts of Nick's, that there are various different moral failings that may occur. Usually this will be attached to, like, for example, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the jokes around, Candace Owens and all that stuff that I'm not really comfortable with explicating. I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people will say the crude language, this and that. So what would you say to a person who says that, maybe they're like ideologically open to a lot of the ideas that Nick has, but they find the behavior very distasteful. And for that reason, they're going to say that they could just never think about being a Groyper?
So what I would say is that I think it's one thing Nick himself has acknowledged with, in fact, Father Maudsley, am I pronouncing his last name correctly? Maudsley. Started watching the show and sort of absorbing a lot of Nick's content. And Nick even made the remark on America First, man, I got to clean up my language. I got a priest here and stuff like that. Right. So I think he is someone who understands that, like anybody else, he's not perfect. He has to put his shoes on, one lace at a time, like all of us. Right. But again, I think this is how we approach criticism or how we approach bringing these things up. Of course, I've used coarse language before. I've made some off-color jokes. I've not always been perfect. I know, none of us are perfect. But I think for someone who's Catholic to come along and then say, well, that makes you not a Catholic, right? Because that's the accusation that gets thrown at us. It's not simply, hey, man, I would kind of avoid making those jokes or making those comments or maybe using that kind of language. It's, you're not Catholic and you're a heretic and you're outside the church. And it again comes from at least our perspective, because I've talked with this with my friends a lot. You just want to rip me down, right? You just want to rip us down. You're not looking for us to be saved. You're not looking for our salvation or to collaborate or what's best for all of us. You're just looking to piety signal in order to beat your own chest and again, be the Pharisee in front of the tax collector. And so when people come up and they say something like, I wish in AF we would use some better language or what have you, I don't think that there's many people that would dogpile them. And I think there would be even many people that be like, you know what? Like, I've made some off-color jokes. I've made some, comments with coarse language or what have you. But it's more so when we get into the approach of people attacking the integrity of our Catholic faith. And that's where I especially take a great issue with those kinds of criticisms, and I find them to be dishonest and distasteful, because I've been in the trenches with these these guys for roughly at this point 4 years. And I have seen priests, monks, fathers, and families be produced as a result of this movement. And it deeply offends me when I see all of that holiness and all of that outpouring of sanctity taking place in these people's lives. And we have some person who their only political contribution is having a monarchist Discord with like 10 members come along and say, yeah, none of that's real. You're not Catholic. It's very insulting. And so I think all that is to say, to make my point very straightforward, it's not that I am against always improving our conduct or behavior. It's that what I am against is using these criticisms as sort of verbal lances or verbal batons to beat Groypers and somehow insinuate that they're not Catholic or that this is not a movement focused and centered on Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. So I guess this kind of leads into the next question, but what is the relationship between Groyperism and Catholicism? I know that there's a lot of Protestant Groypers, Orthodox Groypers. Even I've seen like, guys like Muslim Groyper or, like
they're actually some of the nicest ones, surprisingly. They're some of the nicest guys, really? Surprisingly, wow. Believe it or not.
I didn't know they were that common. I thought it was just like a random schizo on Twitter. But yeah, so there is a variety of backgrounds when it comes to religion, when it comes to denomination. So what is the relationship between Catholicism and Groyperism? Is it kind of like a preferential thing in the movement? Is it like where does it fit in? I guess might be the best question.
It's integral to our identity as Groypers. Even the non-Catholic Groypers have to honestly kind of fall in line when they come to this movement. And what I mean by that is, yes, they are allowed to be a part of America First, but any criticism of the Catholic Church is not tolerated. And I have seen at least 5 to 10 different cases of people coming out against Catholicism and literally being ejected from this movement and turning on it because we were so critical of their anti-Catholic bigotry. Non-Catholics, when they join this movement, they almost immediately know where they are and that this is a Catholic movement, and that while their presence is totally fine within the movement, they have to mind their P's and Q's when talking about the church, talking about Our Lady, and talking about our Lord. And the non-Catholic Groypers are incredibly respectful of that, and thus they act in a very constructive and brotherly way, and I would almost say in a truly ecumenical way, not a false ecumenism that's indifferentist or says, oh, all denominations are as good as another, but one where we say Catholicism is true and you need to become Catholic, but through our friendship, I hope this will lead you closer to the church. And so you get great guys like, off the top of my head, a couple of them I think have moved on to different segments in life, but one of my great friends was Zoomer Theosis. He was Eastern Orthodox, and
I love Zoomer Theosis.
He's awesome.
Where is he?
He's so awesome. What did you say?
Where is he? Like, what happened to him?
I think he just he had to do real life stuff, so he couldn't really be active on the internet anymore. But I've heard that he's doing great, actually.
Dude, he had the famous tweet. What was the famous tweet about spooning your girlfriend? It's like, if you wouldn't spoon your sister, don't spoon your girlfriend.
Yeah, it basically was condemning spooning. And then on top of that, he had an iconic tweet, and it was 2 words, sex icky. And I'm like, dude, so real. Dab me up, bro. And every single time I would post that tweet on Instagram, I'd literally have people in the comment section, well, we're not antinatalists. Well, we're not Manichaeans and stuff like that. It's like, dude, this is an IQ gate, okay? This is, you either get it or you don't,
Yeah, I do think that's a good point with the sex icky tweet being an IQ gate. I actually see a lot of criticisms of Nick, and I listen to them, and I do think it really is an IQ gate. Like, for example, when people criticize him as an anti-Semite, like and I know that this is like probably the biggest trouble I'm going to get in this whole stream, even bringing this up, but I just have to comment on how absurd it is, because I've been listening to a lot of Nick, especially recently. And if you listen through and you ask yourself, okay, what is sort of his on like a geopolitical level? Like, what is his position on Judaism? And why does he say the things that he says about Judaism? It's pretty easy. What world Jewry is the fact that when you have people groups, they have a certain in-group bias. They look out for their friends. They support their friends. They protect their friends. So when you have Jews do the same things for themselves. And they have a state, and they advocate for that state. They advocate for each other. And I think that when you're like, when you just kind of look at that, that's the essential postulate of like what the sort of articulation of world Jewry is. And if you want to point to, anti-Semitic jokes, or you want to point to that stuff, you do that, whatever. I don't care. But really, when you're looking at like what the essential ideological position is of calling out world Jewry, like it's completely benign. I mean, why would that require any sort of anti-Catholic hatred of people for their ethnicity or anything like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, that's one of the things where, if you kind of just look at it on a surface level, or you don't actually listen a lot and derive what the sort of general statement is. Like I saw the infamous Candace Owens the infamous Candace Owens interview with Nick. Like, she just could not understand like what he was talking about when he said when he was talking about Jewish people. She thought that he meant that there's some sort of like intrinsic form infused into Jewish people that just make them evil.
No.
And he kept very clearly explaining what he meant by this, and what he meant by the type of in-group bias that comes with being a part of this people group. Because as Catholics, we know that groups are divided into people groups by things like borders, language, culture, ethnicity, and things like that. But you have this people group, and they have a very strong in-group bias and a disproportionate effect on American politics and world politics in general. And that seems like one of the least controversial things to say. And I think that one would be willfully blind if they were to somehow deny that this is the case. But yeah, that's probably the most trouble I'll get into here. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Pinesap?
Well, what I was going to say is, despite, I'm really not happy with the ankle biting that E. Michael Jones has done against Nick and against us. It does piss me off. But I will say this. I would say that our approach or thinking to Judaism is more in line with what E. Michael Jones has said than someone like Kevin McDonald and Culture of Critique. I have always said, I don't think that there is inherently anything genetic in a Jewish person that makes them hostile to Christ or Christianity. I think it is completely a theological issue. Now, when you say that, a lot of people freak out and they're like, I know one account that loves to do this all the time, HHC on X, where he's like, oh, that's not the religious Jews, that's the secular Jews. But the problem is that, as Nick has once explained, and I thought this was a very nice synopsis of the issue that we're looking at, even secular Jews, the culture that they were formed in, even if we just look at America, was still from rabbis that came over from Poland, Russia, these Eastern Bloc countries, through Ellis Island, right? They were still formed by those same rabbis. They were still brought up in the traditions of the Talmud, and this belief that we are superior, we are better, we are set apart, we are a holy people no matter what we do. And that pours over even into secular Jewish culture too. And as a Catholic, I would go so far as to say, if you don't oppose that, you're letting an entire group just re-crucify Christ over and over and over again. And the way that we oppose them is not through violence. It's not through any unbecoming hatred that a Catholic would never engage in, because hatred is the poison that the devil loves to implant in our heart. I would say that the approach to the Jewish question is one actually put forth in, you might know this book, Christian. Do you know the book, The Way of a Pilgrim, the Russian spiritual classic?
No, I don't.
It's a beautiful book. I actually was given it by one of my spiritual fathers at a parish, at one of my home parishes I used to go to a lot. And it helped me understand the constancy of prayer and helped me learn the Jesus prayer. And I remember one scene in there where there's a man, and he had been horribly treated by these Jewish communities in Russia as he was walking to the destination of where the pilgrim protagonist is. And he's talking about, cursing them and hating them and hoping that they're persecuted. And the man watches a priest correct this man. And the priest proceeds to say, you have to have such an enkindling of love that you pray for these people's conversion, right? The hate that they give you can only be overcome with Christian love, not hatred. And so I've always said the solution to the Jewish question is Christian love.
Hmm.
we will know that they are Christians by their love, and we overcome Jewish hatred with Christian love. And that's the only way that we'll ever solve that issue. And that's exactly what Nick has promoted too. I mean, when I was in Florida for Fuentes Rally 2, and I saw him up on stage, and he was talking about St. Moses the Black and the need to pray and fast, and that we are in a holy spiritual war. I had been a very strong Groyper before that, but there was such an electric in the air. There was such a almost lifelike moment taking place right in front of my eyes that solidified to me this is the movement that God wants me to be in, just through those words. And I think that even though you see sometimes some of us, we might make uncouth jokes, some person with the name Groyper might even make some comment that doesn't go down correctly. I've seen a lot of love in this movement, and I've even seen a lot of love to those who hate and persecute us. And I think it's uncharacteristic of any other movement because, yeah, we're authentic, we're real, we're boisterous, we do crazy stuff, we're crazy guys. I almost think of the scene from SpongeBob, the SpongeBob movie, where he's like, so maybe I am a goofball and a wingnut and a spasmatron, but I'm also, and then he says I'm a goofy goober. It's like, I may be boisterous or crazy or, kind of comedic as a Groyper, but at the end of the day, to be a Groyper is someone who loves and wants to carry out Christ's love in the world. And that's what I've seen pour forth with this movement. So the accusation of anti-Semitism, it's like, do you really want to side with the people that actively hate and persecute the church, or do you want to side with us that say, let's overcome their hatred with Christian love?
And I think that actually this is something which is intimately bound up with divine revelation and what divine revelation says about what is going to be that healing balm for the Jewish people in their final diaspora after 70 AD, their time of wandering and persecutions and all of the bad things that have happened to them. The healing balm of that is joining the Catholic Church. I mean, their ultimate conversion to Christ will be what reconciles them, what brings them back from their pain, their suffering, their wandering, their loss, their continuous persecutions. So there's actually that should sort of lead to a renewed zeal. Obviously, you need to protect yourself and you need to protect your nation, but there always is that sort of unique connection that Christians will always have with the Jewish people, that unique affection we have for them as humans, as the beloved of God in their father Abraham, et cetera, and our unique concern for their spiritual goods, which have been expressed throughout the entire history of the church, despite all of the calumnies that get leveled at the church of just lies and lies about continuous mistreatment and continuous, universal hatred of the Jewish people and all of those lies. But to kind of connect with a point earlier, I just thought about it. When it comes to sort of the what you have described as a sort of like essential love for the Catholic faith or essential basis or foundation of the Catholic faith within the Groyper movement, how would this cohere? Because you've spoken about, you'll have a Groyper here, you have a Groyper there, and they'll say this thing or that thing, or even Nick himself might say something that's uncouth. How does this connect with some of the like foundational slogans and images and like the things that are not just like a guy here, a guy there, but things that are ubiquitous, like the the RKD and yeah,
Right.
everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Right.
Or like the sort of near universal phenomenon that a lot of people who have said bad things about Groypers, or like even in ways in which they think is fair and they were in good faith, but then like the dog piling and stuff like that. Well, what would you say generally to those sorts of critiques that would say, hey, Pinesap, you say it's occasional here and there, but you also have these things that seem, near universal. Is there sort of like a maturing of the movement that has happened where a lot of that stuff gets left behind, and maybe one day you guys did that, but now you're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and we're moving past it? Or is there sort of like a justification for it? Might not be the best word, but an answer to the question that's better than that?
I think what we have to remember is, how did this movement emerge? And this movement emerged in sort of the cage fight of different sort of factions in the early dissident right around 2016, 2017. I mean, Groypers didn't exist in 2016, but really sort of after Charlottesville, right? There's this after Charlottesville effect where Charlottesville goes down. There's all these images that the media is circulating. Oh, this is the alt-right. This is what, happens if you're further on the right, this violence, this hatred or what have you. And there were a lot of different factions within that, right? The biggest was the alt-right for the time. And that was like made up of, at the time, Richard Spencer, Mike Enoch, a couple other figures that were associated with the rightside.biz. And they were pagan, they were degenerate, they were anti-Christian, or if they weren't anti-Christian, they put their Christianity in a very unchristian box, like Giles Corey. If you've ever read his book, The Sword of Christ, I mean, the guy says some absolutely insane, like unacceptable things that do not fit with the gospel at all. And that was the space that reactionary faithful Catholics were operating in. And so you'd have a book that would come out like Catholic and Identitarian, which is a phenomenal work. I highly recommend everyone read it, by Julien Langella, a French identitarian Catholic activist. And it was well received by us, but it was hated by those people because those people accused Christianity of being a Jewish conspiracy or, entrapping white people from their real religion. And Nick comes out as this force of real, authentic Christian reaction in the dissident right. He's like, we don't like paganism, actually. And we are conscious. We are conscious of our race, but we're not race idolaters, right? And we have this healthy balance. We don't hate anyone because of the color of their skin, and we love being white. And through that sort of milieu, that fog, emerged this authentic Christian approach to the dissident right, but it involved a lot of bare knuckle boxing in terms of internet fights and internet cage fights of people trying to take down the movement because they'd like lie about Nick, they'd slander Nick, they'd dogpile, they'd try to dox us, they would ruin people's lives, they would come after other people. I mean, some of the, even after my cancellation, some of the nastiest and most hateful comments I've gotten haven't even been from leftists. They've been from supposed right-wing people who have like tried to ruin my life because they just hate me because I'm a Groyper. And so it's not to say that we can't be more charitable or we can't be more kind, but in some ways, a lot of the irony that was employed was a sense of survival, because it was a very contentious space and we had to carve out our own way. And we still are in a very contentious space. There's still a lot of people trying to bring us down. There's still a lot of people trying to infiltrate and disrupt the movement and, do different things to kind of get it off the beaten course. And so, like RKD or whatever, of course, Nick's not going to ask us to do anything sinful, right? Yeah. If that was going to be the case, I wouldn't be a Groyper. I know, 90% of people wouldn't be Groypers as well, but you have to understand that was the cage fight that we entered. That was the difficult space we were in. We were fighting for our survival, and it wasn't really a cushy space. It was very contentious and still very much is. And so I think that's where a lot of the irony comes from, is this rhetorical strategy to really carve out a place for our own and solidify this movement as something safe that can actually be successful, and I think represent a real Catholic approach to politics that we have never seen the likes of in America before.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it would have been better, or at least it would have been better never to employ some of the more distasteful of those mottos and images, or at least do you think it would be good for the time being, now that it is breaking a lot more into the mainstream, to retire a lot of that from the early days?
I think as long as your sentiment is you're not going to ankle bite or backstab Nick, I don't think you need to say something like RKD or what have you. I don't think anyone's going to call into question your loyalty to the movement or being a Groyper just because you refuse to say certain distasteful things or make certain jokes or what have you. In fact, I've seen a lot of Groyper adjacent people who have never said anything like that, or even Groypers who have never said anything of the sort. And they've always been highly regarded and highly praised within the movement. So I don't think it's an essential aspect. And I think that it's sort of more an accidental trapping that doesn't have to coincide with the identity of being a Groyper. I think just the general sentiment, even with something like RKD, is, are you going to be ankle biting Nick and trying to take him down? Or are you in this movement and are we in this together trying to build something better for ourselves, for our children, and for the future of this country, all rooted and centered in Jesus Christ? And I would say that has been what has stuck out to me the most.
Okay. I think that, yeah, I think that's a good answer. Yes. This, I wanted to go here as well, because this is a common critique that I hear, is that basically when it comes to like Groyperism as a movement, it is so disconnected from the normative authority of the Pope and of the bishops and the ways in which they think about politics. Like how could it be called a Catholic movement when, if you polled every single bishop in the world, they would probably, if I don't know, there might be some bishops who maybe not, but basically every bishop in the world would say, no, I don't like that. Like that's not how I want to do things. Or at least like if you polled all the American bishops, there's the famous instance of the USCCB, what was it with the ADL?
The AJC document that, by the way, it literally has no magisterial authority. And in fact, they literally just put like a commentary with it, but everyone was acting like it was a denunciation or it was like a condemnation.
Yeah. That was so funny when I saw that going around, and people were like, Nick has been officially condemned by the USCCB. And that's just like such a low IQ. I'll just say low IQ. It's such a low IQ understanding of the way in which official condemnations of the church work. It's like, okay, this was like made by the subcommittee of a subcommittee, like some bishops, assistants, sisters, daughters, friends, neighbors, goldfishes, goldfishes, pet watcher who feeds the fish every third summer when they go on vacation to Tallahassee was the one who wrote this document. It wasn't like it was the USCCB in solemn session came together and, they threw down the candlesticks and they condemned Nick. But yeah, just generally to that critique, what would you say of the criticism that, as Catholics, we should be in our political action, staying very close to the pronouncements of His Holiness, of our bishops. And it seems like these sorts of expressions of right-wing Catholicism are almost diametrically opposed on issues. You could think about all the issues that I would list, but that's not really too relevant.
So first and foremost, I think what I'd say is there's not a disconnect as perceived to be as there really is, right? I mean, like with immigration, for instance, like it's not our policy that like we're going to line a giant machine gun up at the border and just, annihilate whoever tries to come over or whatever. If that's what people think we believe, that's completely asinine. We've never believed that, right?
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that's coming out from like the ICE Twitter account. They have memes of like machine gun lined borders, like we're gonna shoot you guys down, and then And then you have like the Nick Fuentes stream where he's like, we really need to take care of these people, make sure, we don't violate their dignity, when we're treating immigrants and stuff. Like, it's kind of crazy actually to watch the perception versus the reality on a lot of these things. But sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, that was a fantastic contribution. And I'd exactly say that. It's like, what do we really want to do? Right. It's like, with immigrants, for instance, like, yes, we don't want them to stay here. That much is clear, but that's acceptable within the framework of Catholic teaching. And not only is it acceptable, but kind of in a roundabout way, as you've even said from the compendium, is it pronounced repatriation?
Yeah, repatriation.
Repatriation is what is taught. And we just want to have the best means of kind of allowing that process to take place. I would much prefer we make we get our house in order here in America, and we make a place like Mexico or we make a place like Africa better through Christian missions and charity, right? Rather than let's just bring everyone in here and create this balkanization. And then when there's something like a race war that happens, oh, well, sorry, we tried. I mean, it's like the problem with these multiculturalist types is and I'm not trying to pull the whole who's the real racist game, but they really are hateful in a certain sense, because all we're saying is, look, we don't hate these people. We just realize everyone needs to have their homeland and have the natural demographics that belong to that land be preserved. And that's Catholic teaching as well. And we want to do that through an ethical Catholic Christian approach. We don't want to do that through violence or hatred or any of the sort. But these people who just say, no, you can't have any borders, throw it open, they're perfectly fine with horrendous crimes happening to our children and our communities. They're perfectly fine with like low scale race wars and balkanization going on in these cities. And I say, who's really the hateful one here? It's like, I want everyone to just live in their own country and thrive and do wonderful. And if a country's suffering, I would much rather be a priest and go there as a missionary to try and help build it up than bringing everyone here and we completely overlook the church's teaching on the health of nations, right? And so I really don't think there's any variance actually with the hierarchy whatsoever. You know, people, again, would maybe like to bring up something like the JQ, but, you know, as we said before, and we said this under Pope Francis, you know, I've gotten a lot of flack for making like the Pope Francis is the most base Pope ever jokes, or like posting the John Allen Jr. article, you know, Pope Francis has a Jewish problem. It's like, hey, this guy does too, you know, can I get some hands, right? But, you know, people are like, oh, you understand that Pope Francis would be horrified of your views. Here's the thing. If I sat down with Pope Leo or Pope Francis and I explained to them, you know, or we explained to them the full problem, and we could give them a crystal ball and say, here's what we're trying to deal with. It's not hateful. We're not trying to take away anyone's human dignity. We're actually trying to approach this in an ethical manner. I think that there would be a complete agreement and harmony, right? We just understand that most of the bishops are from a different era and they're not tapped into the same sort of internet culture and phenomenon and news that we are. So it's just a matter of perspective of what it's like on the ground versus what it's like, you know, sadly in kind of the ivory tower of like Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC, right? It's just it's a difference in perspective that's a cause due to knowledge, but it's not one of intent, because we want the exact same thing as the hierarchy. We want every single human being to be saved through our one holy Catholic faith, outside of which there's no salvation. And we're trying to do everything to aid that mission too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was all of the questions that I was thinking of. Is there any other accusations that, you know, I don't even care for because there's some of the more stupid ones, and that will instantly tell you that somebody's in bad faith, like the you know, like Fed Fuentes, or the gay Fed Fuentes, or
the cat boy,
whatever,
dude.
Like
well,
gay Mexican, Fed Fuentes, gay Mexican fake Catholic Fed Fuentes, you know, all of those things I just don't care for. And they're usually done in bad faith. But is there anything else that you could think of that's like a very common objection that you would like to treat before we move over to the chats and then the member stream?
I think one thing I would just like to say is the only definition of anti-Semitism that a Catholic should be using is Father Gustav Gunlock's definition. Have you read that one before, Christian?
No.
So there's an excerpt of it in a book written by someone who's not Catholic, but it's an incredibly valuable reference text. It's called The Hidden Encyclical of Pius XI, and it's about Humane Generis Unitas, the encyclical that was never released but was being drafted during his pontificate to kind of address the problems going on with Germany and sort of the approach that Catholics should have towards Jews. And the draft encyclical actually, I think, gives the perfect picture of how to approach Judaism, what should be our view on Judaism or what have you, because too many people on the internet fall into either camp. They fall into an actual hatred or an actual sort of prejudice or sort of mal-resentment that people could label as anti-Semitism. I just hate that term in general, but I'll use it just to remain, kind of clear. But then people, in overreacting to that, then fall into what I would argue is philo-Semitism. And I would say that philo-Semitism is also a heresy and an error. And people should not be in that camp either. That encyclical gave the perfect means of not falling into either misdirection that the devil wants to lead us into. And one of the drafters of it was a wonderful Jesuit, Father Gustav Gunlock, who in a German theological dictionary, I believe in the early 1930s, said, basically, it's not anti-Semitic to call out the errors of the Jews. It's not anti-Semitic to talk about the evils of Judaism or what have you. What is anti-Semitic is biological determinism, which I've always condemned, or this idea that somehow the evils or errors of Judaism take away the humanity of a Jewish person, or you're just being unfairly discriminatory towards that person. Unless you're falling into that, you're not anti-Semitic. And I think Catholics need to start looking to an august churchman like Father Gustav Gunlock, not a group like
Gunlock one more time.
Oh, am I butchering it?
I got text and it said Goonlock.
Oh, not no, it's Gooned. It's Gund, not Goon.
I held it together the first few times you said Goonlock. The last time was one time.
Well, okay. I want to break off here, totally unrelated. But I remember earlier today, you're like, I'm going live with Pinesap later, and so I had people at Telegram be like, Pinesap and Patriots, and then I typed under it, I was like, Pinesap and Goontriots.
So true.
I'm like, so true, dude.
Why
we're back.
UI did that. I think he deliberately misspelled it on both of the thumbnails to make it Pinesap rather than Pinesap.
He's just trying to, dude. He's trying to troll, man. It's crazy.
Dude, he is. There was one comment I had on that before we move on to the chats, but. Have you seen that SSPX article in Race?
It's bad. I've heard.
Dude,
it's terrible.
I read it. I was like, I think it was like a day or two after my daughter was born. My wife and I, we had a consulting with a pediatric neurosurgeon because we thought there was something wrong with my daughter right after she was born. I know that's not relevant. She got an MRI, and thanks be to God, she's fine. Could have been really bad, but she's fine. I know it was awesome. Just found the news out a few days ago, actually. And I'm like, we like went to brunch right after this. And I'm like, really like down over this news. And then I like open up, I think like Discord or something like that. And somebody had sent me the article and I read it. And I was like, man, this is like a close second of like the worst thing to happen to me today. Like reading that article. It's just such an awful article. It says that all like race realism is biological determinism. And it's like, dude, you could disagree with race realism without, saying that it's biological determinism. It was just, it was such an absolutely awful article. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more in the after show. I've actually been wanting to do like a review of the article of some sort. Probably
we should do it together.
That would be really fun. We could do like a Rumble /members only type stream where we could review the article. It's just so awful.
I was just going to say, Christian, this is the problem with being a type 1 TLM goer, not a type 2 Nova Sordo enjoyer.
The type 1 TLM goers are so annoying.
They're bad.
I'm trying to be nice to everyone, but there was like the Kennedy Hawk call out of the Groypers. And it's like a sort of like a basic understanding of like a few philosophical principles, apply it to the race question, read even the contemporary magisterium talking about people groups, think about the effect of hereditary traits like with behavior. And it's like just like 5 minutes of thinking plus kind of having a little bit of the background knowledge like makes the question pretty easy. It's not like a super difficult question to figure out. It's like, even if you wanted to say that, I think race realism is wrong. Like you could say that, or you could, have whatever other nuanced view you want to have of it. It's not biological determinism. Like those are two completely different things. And like one is actual racism and is condemned by the church. The other one is just a position that some people take. And even you see going all the way back to like the 50s and 60s, there's disagreements on this issue because this is ultimately an issue of natural science directly. So there can be good faith disagreements between Catholics. But yeah. Anyways, I've gotten myself in too much trouble in this stream.
I'm sorry, Christian. I just didn't hear enough celebration of interracial marriage in that statement. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Only topic. We cannot bring this up. But yeah, we will. I probably won't talk about it in the after show. I'll let Pinesap cook on it, maybe. Okay, so thank you, Taffy. I love Sap streams. So true.
Let's go.
What's good, broskies? How's it going?
It's good.
Pinesap late to our hot date, but now he's late to the stream. So true, Neil.
It's true. Oh, shout out to the Colorado Conservative Coalition, the group that I started. We're now up to 50 members.
The Colorado Conservative Coalition.
Yes, sir.
The CCC.
Yeah.
Rather than the.
Dude, listen.
I'm just saying, it just kind of has a similar like vibe.
Hey, CCC. What is that reference? Catechism, the Catholic Church, dude.
That is true as well.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I
vibe to it. Like when you're saying like the original one, and then you're saying like Catechism of the Catholic Church, Colorado Conservative Coalition. It just has like a similar vibe to it. Anyway,
yes, sir.
SSPVI, Patriots in Control. So true.
So true, King.
Do we get the answer to the? Okay, yeah. Thank you for the super chat. In terms of successful tangible actions, what has Fuentes accomplished in the real outside? In terms of being an influencer, how would we distinguish Fuentes from the Hawk Tuah girl of politics?
Because the Hawk Tuah girl has an influence like roughly every Turning Point USA chapter across the country. I'll even give you an example. I went to the University of Denver. When I first came to that school, I was the most radical guy in TPUSA, and I wasn't even Catholic yet. I was still like a Protestant, like Christian nationalist. And when I said that, I was met with groans of, "Oh, you can't legislate morality. We're just focused on low taxes and gun control or what have you." And I saw in a 5-year span the club go from that, like a libertarian hotbed, to the president, vice president, treasurer, everybody was Groyper aligned. And that's just at a small school, right? But you talk about even at a small school like that kind of infiltration of politics. What does that say for even a larger state school, and like even my state, like CSU, CU, Boulder, or any of these larger schools where the Turning Point USA clubs lead to real life jobs, real life running in politics at that point, right? I mean, we even have Groypers on campaigns and stuff like that for senators and all kinds of things. So it's not just simply a celebrity status. There are real things going on, but we're not going to really reveal our hand, because then that would kind of like topple the whole thing. Because if I beat my chest and say, this heart bleeds Groyper green, and I'm working on some senatorial campaign, well, that's a great way to get me thrown out.
Yeah. I've met people. I was in the South for something. I'll be very vague about it. I was in the South for something at a certain event in a certain year in the South, and I had met somebody just randomly, and they were working on a senatorial campaign, and they're just like full Groyper. It was kind of surreal to like meet this person, be like, yeah, we can't really talk about it, but that's how I feel. Ask Pinesap about his vicious. Okay. Okay. So Trent Horn question. Go for it.
About my vicious attacks.
I'm sorry in advance, Trent.
I don't hate Trent Horn or whatever. We were just making jokes and that sort of thing, because he did come after AF and the Groypers in a very nasty and hostile way. I had even tried to charitably talk to him multiple times and saying, "Hey man, like, let's clear the air, let's clear the room." He has turned me down every single time, and he shut the door on us. It's clear.
I thought if I remember correctly, sorry for interrupting, but
oh no, you're totally fine.
Wasn't there like a year ago where people kept saying get Pinesap on, and then he actually responded like that. Yeah,
Yes.
we could get it done, and then he never
He
responded.
so he said that, and then he proceeded to DM me, "Oh, I'm sorry, this conversation would be too scandalous." So I am going to press him on this. So it's okay to talk to Destiny, who in front of you advocated for incest and bestiality, but I'm a little critical of a group that openly hates the church and has persecuted her, and that's too hot button of an issue. That makes no sense. I'm sorry, I am holding his feet to the fire on that one. That's
Yeah,
completely
I
ridiculous.
actually would be because like I've had like from at least like my indirect interactions with Trent, and I mean I've had my very cordial direct interactions with him, but nothing like super deep. He seems like a very like I hear from everybody. Like he seems like a person who's very open to discussion with other people. Like, and he will talk to, a Protestant account with like 200 followers who like does a video against him. He's like, "Oh, you want to talk about it?" And he'll chat with them and he'll give them, the time of day and give his thoughts. And I think that a lot of the criticisms I've had of Trent, like I've disagreed with him on certain issues of interpreting the New Testament and Judaism and things like that. And I mean, I think there could be a fruitful conversation there. It just doesn't seem like he's super, super interested on that issue in particular, having a conversation about it, which is fine. I mean, nobody's forcing you to have a conversation about it or anything like that. But I was very sad to see that you didn't have a conversation with him. I thought that would have been awesome.
Nobody's forcing him to have that conversation. And if he didn't bring the topic up, I wouldn't demand that of him. I understand you take a lot of flack when you have a conversation like that. But my frustration with him is, why do you keep challenging the integrity of our faith behind a video and you're not even allowing us to speak up for ourselves? That's the thing that offended me, because I have been in the trenches with these guys for 3 years, and we have laughed together, we have cried together, we have gone through everything together. And to see this guy come along and slander people who I love and care about and would give my life for really, really, really pisses me off. And I think it's very un-Catholic behavior of him. I will go so far as to say that.
Pinesap. Puda's awesome. Puda, you're only Puda's allowed in. Catholic Afro-American place in AF movement. We love Puda. Puda's awesome. If you guys don't know Dialectical Puda, I can't remember if that's his Scholastic Puda is his YouTube. I think Dialectical Puda is his Twitter, but give him a follow. Anybody out there, he has really good stuff on Protestantism, Catholicism, Scholasticism, and he's our brother, our brother. I'm sorry, Puda. I'm so sorry. When I have actually had a stream with Puda, and he's African American, right? And it was actually on Juneteenth that I had the stream with him. So he's like, "I'm sorry, dude. It's Juneteenth. Like, you might hear some celebrating in the background, like fireworks and stuff." And I'm like, "You're fine, dude." And then right when we went live, like I saw like the live chat, multiple people like Wagner. He had his first black guest on Juneteenth. But no, I love Puda. What are your comments on the role of black people in AF movement?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of black members of AF, and many I'm good friends with. Like, there's I think quite a portion of my chat. I mean, one of my best friends is Mike Van, and he's a black Groyper. There's guys like Tenrio, who he's one of Nick's greatest friends. He's as dark as they come, right? So, and he's fully loved. He's fully appreciated within AF. So yeah, I mean, totally, man.
Okay, awesome. All my homies love Sappy America
Let's
first.
go.
So true.
Let's go.
Please don't groip me, but please pray for my 2-year-old niece. She has terminal brain cancer, and her father already had his own brain tumor. Very sorry to hear that. We'll be praying for her.
Absolutely.
What happens to AF if something happened to Nick? He recently said no one could take his place, so it seemed like a critical vulnerability and incentive for assassinations. Also, happy holidays.
I wasn't laughing at what he said earlier, just the last sentence.
Okay. Thank you for the super chats, Paul. But yeah, what's going on with what happens if Nick sadly passes?
I really don't have the answer to that question. I think what I would say is all of us collectively would try to take up the reins the best we could to carry on his legacy. And we are all very limited people. There, I don't care if this is glazed. There's nobody like Nick. I really do think that God put him in this time for a reason. And I believe that so much from the bottom of my heart that if there was ever a means where I had to give my life so that he could continue his mission, I would do it. Because I really think that God had put him in this time to help save America and put Jesus Christ finally on the throne of America. Because I've seen our families be torn apart. I've seen our communities be torn apart. I've seen everything be taken from us, and to have this young man come along and give us hope again and give us this sort of this exuberance, this spirit that I think many felt broken by after, sort of the Obama presidency and the Iraq war and even Trump's disappointments. That's really a mission I believe in. And so I think my answer would be there would be no AF without Nick. But what we would do is we would try to take up the reins the best we can collectively and always carry on his mission. No matter what, the legacy that he has already established with helping convert people is, I think, well beyond measure. And he's left a lasting mark in the lives of I would even say millions of people by even just helping them become Catholic. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, this comment was such low hanging fruit, but I still found it to be funny. That was so fun. It was so funny to me. Like, it was such low hanging fruit. Everyone, I hate it. Like when something becomes super popular and everyone's talking about it, but it's actually just like I genuinely find it to be funny. And it's like super low hanging fruit. I don't want to be the guy who like jumps on and always talks about whatever everybody else is talking about, but it genuinely, I found that arc to be hilarious. Okay, so your response. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Graylee Hen 94. Our A-logs attack us. You guys attack people like Trent, EMJ, Candace Owens, and say nasty things about them for months. Clean up your act first. What are your thoughts about this, Pinesap?
They always love to throw the first punch, and then when we're like, hey, what gives? Then someone like Graylay comes along and he's like, why did you guys punch back? Why did you fight back? Well, we fought back because they're slandering us and they're saying nasty things. I mean, EMJ loves to call Nick pejoratively a white boy. And, this sort of, this whole, oh, you can't be white and Catholic, right, sentiment. Candace Owens literally brought him on her show just to slander him and drag him through the mud. And she's attacked our bishops. She had Milo Yiannopoulos, a fake Catholic. I'm sorry. Milo is a fake Catholic. He wears it because it's a costume, and he actually lives a homosexual double life. She had him on, and he proceeded to slander our bishops and our cardinals and say that 80% of them are gay. By the way, that information comes from Mossad. I wonder where he got that from. So don't lecture us about, oh, you attack these people. These people all threw the first punch. They have all dragged my friends' names through the mud. And so, yeah, I am fighting back against them because you don't insult people that I would give my life for. That's unacceptable. You clean up your act, pal.
Dude,
I'm sorry.
There went nuclear.
I'm done with the pleasantries of guys like that. Guys like that love to sit on the sidelines and criticize. They are not down in the trenches. I've had guys come to me and say, I have a drug addiction. I've thought about killing myself. I always get emotional talking about this stuff, but guys who have no hope, guys who don't know if Christ loves them. And I would give my life for any one of those people. Someone like that has not seen the side of things that I've seen. And for him to come along and try to poke his finger in our world, not knowing what these young men go through, it's unacceptable. And I'm not tolerating it.
Thank you for the response, Pinesap.
Sorry about that. I know I get very emotional, but it's
just got a little white boy cook here and there. Yeah, I actually, I don't know if this will get me in trouble with some people, but I was visiting Notre Dame. I had a speaking engagement at a club there, and I actually got to meet E. Michael Jones, and we had breakfast. And the whole time, like, take this for whatever you want, everybody, because it's not like this is, private information because he talks about it publicly. But like literally almost the entire conversation was about Nick and about, the race realism stuff. Like, I don't honestly don't know why he fixates on that. It's, I respect him for a lot of the stuff that he does. He's taking good stands, but I really don't know why that's like the one thing he likes to fixate on.
It's a shame too, because E. Michael Jones is a phenomenal writer. I still love his writings. Like Logos Rising, a ton of people have been converted because of that book. Like, it's a beautiful book on the presence and role that Christ plays in history. He just needs to stop being so rude. That's it. But, I still respect him for his academic work, just like you were saying. It's undeniable the kind of positive influence he's had.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Morse Ultra, for the membership gifts. Everybody's going to want to check out the after show where we say what we really believe. Ask Sappy if he thinks Greta is an underground Groyper.
I hope she is.
I'm sure you do, buddy. You saw that one hard. What was she wearing? She was wearing the there was like a picture of her going around. She was wearing like the Palestinian scarf. She was wearing some shirt, and the shirt was so funny. You guys know what have you seen this picture? She's wearing some really funny shirt, and I can't remember what exactly she was wearing.
I'm trying to think what shirt she was wearing, but she was wearing in one the frog hat, and that was cool. And then she had the whole controversy with the octopus because people were saying it was like an anti-Semitic canard or something because it was like the octopus pouring over the world trying to take it over. And that happened like about a year ago. She's awesome, dude. Greta's got my heart. I'm just saying.
We need to get Hassan a gifted membership. I'll send you the link, Hassan. Don't worry, you can come to the after show. Feeling like baking cookies watching the stream. Dude, DN, you cannot tempt me like this. I'm actually on like a cut right now. Like, believe it, it's happening. You'll get Skinny Wagner in a few months, it'll be all over. But right now I'm just like,
I was gonna say it you do look like you've lost weight, man. I think you've been working out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, Skinny Wagner is coming by end of 2025. I'm going to stick to it. Like, for dinner, I had like a few chicken nuggets, and I was just like, man, I wish I could eat more than this, but it's worth it. It's the work. The work must go in. The work. Well, we must be looks maxers.
We must be looks maxers. Well, I was just going to ask, how much black coffee do you drink?
A lot.
Okay, that's good because that does help cut your appetite. Like, that's helped me a lot. Because sometimes, dude, let's go. Okay, you know about it. You know.
Nick makes fun. I know Nick makes fun of like nicotine, alcohol. Actually, I'm not drinking alcohol most days for the cut as well. But the nicotine, I've been a long time user of nicotine. I know it's a LARP, but I mean, I've been using nicotine since I was like 15. And I stopped for a long time. And now I'm literally the only reason I'm getting back into it is for the cut, just to, cut the appetite. You just got to do it.
No, dude, that's so real.
Okay. Next question. Does Nick attend the TLM?
He has gone to the TLM a couple times. I think he just attends his local parish as far as I know, which is really based because it's kind of bringing back that quintessential American Catholic experience of building up your local community and having real roots in your parish. And that's what I've tried to do too. Like, I started going to a parish near me and trying to get more integrated in the community there. It's been very beautiful and rewarding. I think because of the size of it, I should probably have quite a bit of influence over it and just making it even more reverent than it already is.
Yeah, awesome to hear. Do you see any potential friction within AF being a political movement identifying with Catholicism? For example, potential condemnation coming from liberal bishops and others close to the Vatican. Like, I wouldn't say Francais type, messing around going on.
I wouldn't say so, and the reason why is because even with Action Francais, the problem was Charles Maurras was a positivist and he was an agnostic. At the time, he wasn't a Catholic, and so Pius XI could easily look and say, well, this guy's not a Catholic leading this movement and supporting it. But Groypers are unbelievably obedient to the hierarchy. Like a lot of us defend our bishops. A ton of us, almost all of us, are what people would coin, Pope splainers. We just live a very simple Catholic life in terms of not speaking ill of the hierarchy or what have you. And so I don't think that there's any friction. And we've actually been incredibly against I know this is going to be controversial, but a lot of SSPX people love to come in and all the time lecture us about how we should be a part of the society and support the society or what have you. But if anything, I think that's a kind of a plan of a certain tiny hatted people to get us out of the pale of the unity and the obedience of the Catholic Church to disrupt authentic Catholic action that's happening within AF. Because it's very easy then for them to just say, oh, well, you're going to this chapel, not even in the diocese, you're not even a part of the church, so be it, right? But instead, it's like if we're in our community or whatever, it's like we're dyed-in-the-wool Catholics, dude. Like you're not going to take away our faith.
Yeah, because I know there's a certain critique where a lot of people will say that Groypers don't go to mass. They kind of just LARP online as Catholics. But at least
Not
from my
true.
experience with Groypers, most of them are weekly mass goers. Some of them have families, and a lot of them are converts. And I've never really met any of the really dedicated ones that they don't go to mass, don't go to confession. They're just kind of nominal Catholics. I've never really seen that being a thing.
I know probably off the top of my head 5 that are catechists and lead their OCIA classes. I know probably 20 that altar serve or at least infrequently altar serve. I mean, super involved.
Then you have the groyped seminarians. That's a whole new that's a whole new lore. Keep those names to your grave.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's another reminder, guys. And I think this needs to be addressed a lot more. Actually, I don't think enough people are addressing this. There's a temptation for especially a lot of young men who are seminarians, interested in pursuing the priesthood, interested in getting into the theology world in an academic setting, etc. And a lot of times they spurg, they spurg, they go and they're trying to convince, their seminary professor of, they're trying to red pill their seminary professor or red pill their bishop. And that will literally ruin your life. So definitely do not do that. Obviously don't lie, but don't kind of be very ostentatious about controversial things. Okay. Guess who? Thank you for the super chat. I'm not even going to read it. Pinesap, single bap. Thank you.
That's so real.
Because of your videos and Francis de Sales writings, my family and I are converting from the Reformed faith to Catholicism. Grateful for your work.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's
blessed be God.
Awesome. Reformed converts, Hassan, he has certain things that he'll say about Muslim converts and the things that they excel in. Muslim converts to Catholicism, but Reformed converts, they have a special place in my heart because I'm a Reformed convert. And they do excel in many, many different areas. And I always love to hear that somebody's a Reformed convert. God bless you both. We have our Sede convert here, Dietrich. I can't say the word. I keep forgetting. Took power from the WASP elite in a WASP majority country. Are Protestants replacing for Catholic ones? What degree of cross denomination inclusion do Groypers have?
That's actually a really good question. So, yes, that's true. The sort of I would say the new elite we're trying to build is a WASC elite, white Anglo-Saxon Catholic. That's one of the terms I've denoted myself because I literally come from an Episcopalian family, which is the quintessential WASP experience of America. All our presidents or what have you. And I'm seeing a lot of that type of conversion. The cross-denomination inclusion is really sort of non-Catholics can join AF, but they have to understand it's a Catholic movement. So that means no bad-mouthing Catholicism, speaking ill of Catholicism or what have you. But so long as they're within those parameters, they're fully treated well. We love them to death. We have their back. And most importantly, if we have real love for them, it means we try to evangelize them and help them grow closer to Jesus Christ and thus become Catholic.
Awesome. Okay, so I actually wanted to hop over to this one because I just looked up what I think you're talking about. Pinesap on Rerum Ecclesiae and Gaudium et Spes. I think he's talking about specifically this line from Rerum Ecclesiae, which says anyone who looks upon these natives as members of an inferior race or as men of low mentality makes a grievous mistake. Experience over a long time has proven that the inhabitants of these remote regions of the East and the South frequently are not inferior to us at all and are capable of holding their own with us, even in mental ability.
I wouldn't say that there's any issue or anything like that in anything we've said. I mean, we're honest about IQ rates or what have you, but that doesn't mean that we doubt the moral ability, moral conviction, or even somehow insinuate that, oh, if you're this race, you're dumb or what have you. I think it's more just an honesty about, really this balance. And I think Nick has had this balance a lot in talking about Black America is, it's not this, oh, Black Americans are dumb or what have you, but there are problems in those communities. And the only way that we solve those problems is if we're honest about what's affecting those communities. And I think because Nick has been so honest and forthright, a lot of Black YouTubers actually love him now and think that he's been very forthright in dealing with the issues of their community. And a lot of Black people have done an excellent job, I think, in rejecting the sort of thug culture and stuff like that that's so hoisted upon Black people. Sorry, I was thinking that that comedy skit of the one comedian that's like, I love Black people, but man, do I, that skit. A lot of Black people are speaking out against that too. And we, at least in AF, are supportive of that mission. And I think that's why those Black people who want to pursue, we talk about the term white excellence, and we want white excellence. We want Black excellence too. We want Black people to do well in their communities. We're horrified to see the abortion rates going on in Black communities and the crime and desperation and poverty and despair. And we don't want anyone to suffer. So I wouldn't say that there's any disconjunction with what we believe and what the Holy Father said in Rerum Ecclesiae.
Yeah, actually, Hassan is a really good explanation of this, but I will save that for a different stream. Pinesap, what do you think about the importance of being involved in local government and Catholic action?
Very important, extremely important. In fact, the group that I started is exactly trying to do that. We're trying to pull together, like-minded people within our state to get involved in politics in a very serious way, whether that's supporting certain local elections, taking certain seats in local government, doing appropriate political activism, like going to pro-life rallies, or I'll be blunt, like anti-gay rallies too, and doing that kind of activism and giving that kind of Catholic witness, including being included in local politics. I probably could never have a chance to run just because of the articles that are out there about me or what have you. But if I can get
one day, it's kind of funny. Nick, somebody asked him a question one time in an interview that he was giving. I can't remember which one it was. They asked him, "Oh, are you interested in ever running for political office?" He was like, "Oh yeah." So I mean, he must be very bullish when it comes to the state of America. If there's a time in which Nick could have a chance at public office in the future, but yeah.
It's true.
I'm heavily considering converting from non-denominational Catholicism. Did Eastern Orthodoxy ever come up in your decision? How did you navigate that? How did your family take your conversion? I mean, I don't know if this is for me or Pinesap, so I'll answer all three, and then you can answer all three.
Amen.
Eastern Orthodoxy, I wouldn't say it was ever particularly attractive because I was pretty interested in scholasticism and in Thomism before my conversion. So like I was already very convinced of something like the Filioque for a long time before I actually converted. How did you navigate that? CF, what I just said. And how did your family take your conversion? It differed. Some people, they were kind of like, if that's what you like, that's what you like. Other people were negative, and some people, hostile, but overall, nobody really was explicitly very, very like violently hostile. I wasn't getting like, kicked out or anything like that. Not that I was living with my parents at the time, but it wasn't excessively hostile. Most of it would have been from a lot of friends who just kind of never talked to me again and stuff like that.
Oh, sorry. I like zoned out for a moment. I was reading the chat. I was listening to everything you were saying. I just
Yeah,
was like,
yeah. Pinesap's like, oh, your friends abandoned you. Awesome.
no,
Awesome.
no, it wasn't like that. I was just scrolling through chat. No, yeah, dude, it's tough. Like when you convert, there's some people who stay with you. There's some people who don't. I would say that when I was going from being, kind of broadly Anglican. I mean, I sometimes say that I was Anglo-Catholic, but it's not like I was attending like actively like an Anglo-Catholic parish. I was in this weird, like almost kind of limbo state where I wanted to be Anglo-Catholic for a long time, but I didn't have a parish nearby me. So I was just kind of like, whatever. And at the time wasn't able to go to church really. But I would say that, when I was becoming Catholic, Eastern Orthodoxy, while some of the aesthetics seemed beautiful, it seemed very foreign. It just seemed very like ethnic. It seemed very foreign, and the kind of conversion that it demanded was not one of the heart and the spirit, but one of the flesh. And it was almost this idea that like I had to become Greek to be Eastern Orthodox. I had to become Russian to be Eastern Orthodox, and I would say that was very distasteful to me because I didn't find that to be a sign of the true Church of Christ. Whereas I was looking at Catholicism and every single ethnic and racial group had their culture fully represented within the church. I mean, you have Vladimir Soloviev, that's a incredible Russian Catholic. You have the influence of the Greek Catholic Church and the Eastern Catholics. You have African Catholics, Latin America, come on, right? That's Catholic Central right there. Europe, France, and even the biggest hurdle for me was like reconciling my own white English heritage for a while. But I realized that number one, Anglicanism is so posh and gay. It's like dress up and like there's a ton of like there is unironically like this weird gay subculture within Anglicanism of like dudes who are
culture. It seems like the entire culture. Dunk, boom, roasted.
Well, the entire culture, but like how many times on Twitter do we go on there and there's some guy like nerding out about like liturgy of the hours, like, oh, this is from like 1400s, and
that's why I kind of get like an off vibe about some of the like liturgically obsessive trads. I'm like, this is a little bit, it can be done in a way that's like, I really care about these aspects that have an essential connection with the spiritual life. And there's ways about it. It's where like, okay, this is kind of like, I get the same vibe as like women who are like really into fashion or like gay guys who are really into fashion. And it's very off-putting.
Yes. And it's this weird pageantry that has no heart or soul to it. St. Paul says, I can speak like an angel from on high, but if I have not charity, I have nothing. These people don't have charity. Like these Anglicans will nerd out about the liturgy and they're like, oh yeah, but I'm also having my same-sex union blessed next week with my pastrix, doing, it's the traditional serum rite from 12. And it's like, the heart is not there. I put out a tweet a long time ago where I said, honestly, when it comes to Protestants, I have a lot more respect for a fundamentalist Baptist who's low church but wants to follow God and wants to follow what the Bible says than some high pageantry, smells and bells. Oh, we've got all the window dressing like Episcopal church, but it's like there's gay unions and women priests, dude. No, that it has none of the heart. It's a whitewashed tomb. And I think because of that, like, it was extremely easy for me to see the English identity, actually the Anglo-Saxon identity, fully immersed in Catholicism. And I actually became extremely heartbroken because I felt like, oh man, I was about to crash out there, but I'll hold my tongue. I felt like a certain group of people and certain influences had like taken our culture away from us, right? And had thrown like my race and my people off of this path that was Catholicism, the fullness of Christ. And from that, I realized that only Catholicism could fully embody the unity that Christ had called us to and the fulfillment of the true apostolic faith that he wanted us to be a part of. And so I think through navigating that, the personal ordinary, it was like a huge influence and what have you. And that made it very easy to see.
Chads rise up.
Let's go, dude. Ordinary Chads are up. it showed me that like the Catholic Church wanted us to become Catholic and wanted us to convert. And I didn't see that kind of love anywhere else. And I would say that my family did have a difficult time with it at first because it was kind of a break from almost 500 years of the same Anglicanism or even just same broad Protestantism. But in time, they came to accept me becoming Catholic. And I think it's left an enduring positive influence upon my family and one that I've only wanted to cultivate and grow as time's gone on. Sorry, that was overly verbose. I hope I didn't take too much time.
No, you're fine. I just want to rush through the rest of the questions so we can get to the real meat in the after show. There's just a hint for you guys to either become a member or become a patron. Or if you don't like any of the membership options on Patreon, there's actually an option to just like throw me $3 and it'll let you just access only that video if you don't like, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's rush through these. Hi, Pinesap. Considering the recent controversies, I hope you're doing well. God bless.
Thank you, brother.
Please answer my question. Dude, you got to attach it to the super chat or I can't see the question. I mean, I would have to like scroll through a bajillion messages. I'm sorry, dude. I apologize. Just love both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Pinesap is my favorite African-American content creator.
Let's go. Represent.
So you need to become Mostra Tate Pilled. True, I am Mostra Tate Pilled.
That's real.
I'm okay. No, that's for the after show. I've heard Nick say that he wants to make an AF network like Daily Wire. I hope he follows through on that and brings other live streamers into the fold. Is there anyone else that stands out as a candidate?
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. Who would stand out as being sort of a candidate for a network like that?
I know it's really hard because there's a
tough.
lot of people that make, informative stuff, but like an AF network would be something more concerned with not only being able to give the right sort of message, but also the right sort of delivery. And that's why people like Nick. So like if you just bring a bunch of, chuds, you bring a bunch of chuds on there who are like, here's my 7-hour, debunking of I don't know, the claim that we're anti-Semites or whatever. Like nobody's really they're not interested in it for the same, reason. They both kind of come together. So yeah, I don't know about that. EMJ tweeted extra ecclesiam nulla salus in response to Bishop Williamson's passing. Yeah, I did not like that at all. Love you, Wagner and Pinesap, and thank you for saving my life, Pinesap, and bringing me back to Christ.
Hey, God did, man. I didn't do anything. I'm just here.
Thank you, Austin, for both gifted memberships.
Let's go.
Crabster, should swarthy non-whites such as Celts join AF? Yeah, neither
come
of us
on.
are swarthy. We're anti-swarthy pilled. Because I mean, I'm obviously Germanic, and you're, I think, French, right?
Well, I'm French and I'm English, so I'm a mix between the two. But dude, honestly,
that's the real race mixing that everyone's.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest, bro. Like the British political. I mean, I'm not British, so I'm not tapped in. But like, you see all the British political commentators, and then you see like what they were doing months ago, and it's like, oh, this is really cooked. Like the Med Chads, the Swarthoids are kind of leading up the head on giving authentic Catholic witness in politics. So like, as a representative of the British Council, of the English Council, please come save the Anglosphere, dude. It is so cooked.
I laugh so hard when I hear Nick go on his thing is like, okay, yeah, I'm a quarter Mexican. Yeah, my mom's Italian. But like, who else is there? Like, bring me the 6'4", like Aryan Chad, and he can be the man to lead the movement. But for now, it's you have to deal with me. I always laugh when he says that. Yeah, my wife's actually of Anglo-Irish origin, so I can sympathize with a lot of your race mixing questions as a Germanic man. Began with sin, killed by sin. Anglicanism, real. Giga Chad White Boys Cooking. Thank you, Logan.
Real, dude.
How to deal with the pro-immigrant activism from the Vatican? Our country's being destroyed. Please help. I'm faithful to the church, but also to my people.
I don't think so. What I would say with that is you have to understand, the Pope, when he's thinking about these immigrant groups, he's just seeing people suffering. He's not saying like, let's just put a bunch of people in this country, like Patrick in that one episode where he's like, let's take the town and push it somewhere else, right? It's not like that. So I would say that the Vatican is just trying to show up for people and do what's right by people. And again, this is kind of the difference between what we see on the ground and what's actually going on. But keep in mind, even under Pope Francis's pontificate, where he was a huge hugely cared for like migrants or what have you. He didn't condemn the governments of Hungary or Poland for controlling their borders. Their leaders weren't withheld from Holy Communion or what have you. So you're not at any variance as a Catholic by being an immigration restrictionist like myself at all. In fact, in some ways, that is church teaching, so long as you support ethically treating migrants in sending them back to the country that they're from, not doing something horrible that would undermine their human dignity.
Yeah, I think it's a hard question. I've yapped about this a lot, and I'll have to make this quick, but it is a hard question insofar as there's like a lot of principles that are being involved in like this practical decision. And oftentimes what you'll have, it's happened over and over again in the history of the church with many different popes. It's not just like a post-Vatican II thing, is sometimes they will overemphasize like one principle to the exclusion of another when they're making practical decisions. But if you go through and read like all their doctrinal teaching, you can, make a decision politically in line with their principles and disagree with them on a practical solution that they may put forward and be equally as faithful as a Catholic. We don't have this sort of weird equivalency between, political decisions from the Pope and then decisions of doctrine or other decisions that may happen within the church. Like there is the role of, what the magisterium calls like political technique, that the church, sometimes fails in her competence to take fully into account of these things. Did you ever bizlarp from time to time? And do you ever? No, I don't, and I never have. I know you're a bizlarper.
Me?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, dude?
I'm always hearing you talk about the Eastern Catholics, man.
I breathe. Listen, bro. I breathe with both lungs, and I'm taking a deep old breath. That's what I'm saying.
Your one lung is like this big, and then your other lung is just like like Pinesap's chest is just like 99% left lung, like 1% right lung.
Dude, I literally, it's funny though, because even though people might call me a bizlarper, I don't hate them as people, but I hate Zogbyites, dude. I literally, like, they make me so unbelievably angry, and I'll go on rants about it, and people are like, what the heck is a Zogbyite? Like, I don't know what that is, right? And then I have to get into history. But the reason I hate it is because it actually destroys the authentic witness to Eastern Catholicism that's had in like, Patriarch Joseph Slippy or Venerable, oh my goodness, Andrei Shepsky, right? Like these men who suffered and died for the church and who were authentic Catholics and represented a real Eastern Catholic approach that wasn't Latinized and at the same time wasn't Zogbyism either. And when I see Zogbyites, it's like, you are just Eastern Orthodox, dude. You're not Catholic. Like, you don't believe in the Catholic Church. You don't believe in Catholic teaching. And either you need to shape up or ship out at that point.
So true. Read the Eastern Code. Never let a Zogbyite read the Eastern Code of Canon Law when it talks about the authority of Rome and ecumenical councils. Never let them read that. Hi, Sapien Wagner. Good to see you two together. Servant of God, Savonarola. Pray for us. God bless. God first. Groyper is awesome. We love him. Christian, pull up on America Fest.
Yes, dude, I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. We actually talked about this beforehand. I have a lot of stuff going on in December. I'm actually moving in December. Right now, I'm in the process of selling my house, buying a house, stuff like that. But in December, I'm also traveling to North Africa again for a little bit, going around, seeing how everyone's doing, helping out as much as I can in the TAVNet department, which Hassan, you gotta love Hassan. He's in charge of this mission to the uh, to the Muslims. I'm trying to find the link. Here you go. So if you guys want to check out what the Tablish Network is and what they do with the conversion of the Muslims, very good work that they're doing. Donate, all of that stuff if you're interested in that. I just posted the link, tavlishnetwork.com. If you can't spell Tavlish, it is Tavelic, Tavlish Network.
It's super awesome. I love the work that the TavNet does.
Listen to this, man. It's super awesome. Official I'm just joking. No official connection.
Official Groyper General.
If I say that.
And I wasn't trying to spur gout, but I've had people who call themselves Groypers or whatever within AF. Like I've had people before be like, you're trying to be like Nick or something, or you're trying to establish yourself as a general. It's like, no, I'm just a content creator that's supportive of AF, dude. Like, I'm not trying to take any leadership position.
So true. Hassan is right. Catholic moral theology is so cooked. Banned? Yeah, you're getting banned. Okay, YouTube member, thank you. Pinesap's thoughts on conversion therapy. Okay.
W, love genuine.
It. W, okay, good. Scholastic Buddha, economic policies and role of the state in AF. That's a pretty broad question. If you wanted to give like a 30-second answer to that, then we can move over to the member stream, which everybody needs to become a member to join.
Oh, let's go. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it froze for a moment. I thought it froze for a moment. Sorry about that.
No, economic policies and role of the state in AF.
So what I would say is, from my understanding, and again, this is a limited understanding, the politics guys can explain this much better than I can, but a certain degree of economic protectionism, right, to safeguard industries here. Not that trade is wrong necessarily, but we want to make sure that this country isn't being sold out, or its industries aren't being sold out by people who just want to divvy it up for their own slice, right? I would also say that the role of the state would be something more akin to sort of a post-liberal republic, where there is maybe a stronger executive branch that's not bogged down by like ridiculous judges or a ridiculous legislative branch, one that can actually get things done, but not where, elections don't happen or anything like that.
Oh man, we're getting more questions. Opinion on premarital handholding. I'm trying to rush through the questions so we can
Don't do it.
Don't do it. So true. How do you reconcile the concept of ethnicity or race in Catholicism? I don't know if there's any contradiction. I think there's like a pretty good coherence between,
I would agree,
especially the concept. I mean, the concept of like the idea of race and like different races as like a broader category is like more controversial, I would say, and definitely much less clear in the magisterial sources. And like even good faith Catholics have always, going back, 40s, 50s, and before, have like disagreed about exactly like what that is. And I mean, to be fair, that's a lot more of a broader, analogous, and less concrete idea. The idea of race, but the idea of ethnicity is definitely like this gets frequently spoken about, like well past Vatican II. There's some good stuff from St. John Paul II actually on how this plays into distinct people groups. But there's nothing bad about it if you're not a biological determinist, if you don't hold to like a certain universality of man, that's right next to the particularity of different groups. Like as long as you're not, contradicting those principles, like there's nothing inherently against Catholicism by admitting these sorts of ideas.
I would definitely agree with that. And there's even a good source book. I don't know the exact commentator or the guy who put it together, his leanings, but it's by Alexander Storin, called A Survey of Racialism in Christian Sacred Tradition. And it's just referencing like the popes, church fathers, and stuff like that about the idea of race, or race existing, or race playing a certain role. So it's a beautiful like source book. I would highly recommend getting it. The commentary, I don't know. I haven't read through it extensively, so I'm not sure what the commentary is exactly. I wouldn't put your full trust into it, but the sources are good and they're legit.
Yeah, I mean, Father Bonaventure Hinwood, his work, Race Reflections of a Theologian, are really good on this to show like the good, legitimate disagreement between theologians and why that's not, any sort of barrier and a lot of good official sources from the church on these issues. Hey, Dr. Marshall, it's good to
Dude,
have you
let's
here.
go. W.
Thank you.
W. We
Rooting for
love
Gen Z
Dr. Taylor
Catholics.
Marshall.
I appreciate it. Okay, quite frankly, so true. Can we
Real.
play Garlic in Discord soon? Sure. Okay,
Garlic phone.
Thank you, everyone. We're moving over to the after show. Somebody asked how they join. You just click the join button. It should be right below the video, somewhere around there. Thank you all, and as always, God bless.